He believes in Afghanistan first. He sacrificed his personal and political interests to keep the Afghan people's interests supreme. My guest on the broadcast is Dr. Abdullah, the Chief Executive of Afghanistan. Sir, welcome on India Today.
Thank you.
Sir, your country, just before you came to India, there was a terror attack at the Kabul International Airport. Your country has been fighting a war on terror for practically 16 years. Why haven't you won?
It's more than 16 years. It's 16 years since the world is engaged in Afghanistan and helping us and supporting us in dealing with that issue. Terror is a global problem, global challenge. Unfortunately, Afghanistan happens to be in the front line. Our people have suffered because of this. But our people also have not stopped striving for betterment of their lives, education, and building the country, rebuilding the country, pursuit of democratic goals and democratic process, achieving their rights. So both are happening.
Is terror the biggest impediment in the growth of Afghanistan? And you're a doctor. Are we diagnosing the problem perhaps incorrectly? Because to solve a problem, you have to get to the root of the problem. So where is the root of the problem your country faces, sir?
Terror is the biggest challenge that we are faced with. And it affects, it has affected every aspect of life in Afghanistan. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, it's a global challenge. It's not specific to Afghanistan. You see that when a terrorist action takes place in any capital of the world, that country, no wonder how stable that country or how developed that country is, they create a standstill. But the fact that the Afghan people, in spite of all these challenges, have achieved so much and continue to aspire for better lives and work together, that in itself is a story to tell.
And as the doctor, if you were to diagnose the problem, where is the root of the problem? Are we treating the symptoms and not going to the root? Where is the root? How do we solve that?
There are different aspects of it which has to be addressed. For a while, Afghanistan was neglected, and it was only a few countries who were supporting Afghanistan in dealing with terrorism. India was one of those countries which used to support us during the resistance against Al-Qaeda and Taliban. And that problem was not recognized in its global scale and impact at that time. Then came 9/11 and the attention towards Afghanistan. At that time already global networks of terror were established. In today's situation, I would say that sincere and serious efforts for all neighboring countries of Afghanistan is one of the key requirements in order to be able to address this problem.
So the US President Donald Trump, he's announced a new policy on Afghanistan. You know, Jim Mattis, the US Defense Secretary, when he was landing, there was this terror attack. So are terrorists sending out a message to the US by attacking the airport at the time that the US Defense Secretary lands there?
Absolutely. I think it was a message, but also the message to the terrorist groups is also very clear. Worldwide, not just the United States, but free world has sent a strong message to the terrorist groups and those who are backing them that this is not the way forward. And there are lots of lessons learned in the past years that supporting terrorist groups does not benefit anybody, any country, any institution, any state. And if you are suffering, it's not ours. It will not be just us as Afghans who are suffering. a lot of opportunities are there for the peoples of this part of the world, this region, and the terrorist groups are only bringing the message of destruction. They are not building anything for themselves or for the peoples. So it's important that we all realize that.
So the US President said, and I quote, "Washington can no longer be silent about safe havens of terror in Pakistan." Now he's named Pakistan. In your appreciation, how correct is he? And what is the proof that these terrorist organizations have safe havens in Pakistan?
You will not be making me a judge for making judgments about state leaders' statements, but at the same time, the issue of sanctuaries has been something that we have raised it with our neighboring country, Pakistan, and we want a solution for it. We want an end for it, and we have to address it, and this is one of our main concerns.
But Pakistan denies it. They deny that there are safe sanctuaries there. So what's the way forward? Are surgical strikes at these safe sanctuaries to keep Afghans safe an option, whether for Americans or for Afghans or together?
There are two issues that I need to address. One is the US policy on South Asia, which is more comprehensive and also very clear about the issues, about the challenges, which has been widely welcomed in Afghanistan. That's one. Next to that, we will continue to engage and interact with Pakistan on the issues related to the Taliban in their presence there, and at the same time other countries will also engage through their own ways and through their own means. But one thing that we can assure all our neighboring countries, that Afghanistan is not a threat to any country. It will not pose a threat to any country. What we want and what we seek is friendly relations between Afghanistan and its neighbors based on mutual respect.
But the neighbors don't seem, at least one neighbor, it appears, does not want that. Or, you know, they blame Afghanistan in turn, that Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is based out of Afghanistan and they are targeting lives in Pakistan.
I would say that the situation is very clear-cut. I don't think that by denying issues we can address it. Instability in Afghanistan will not be good for any country, whether we know it or we don't know it. Through a stable Afghanistan, countries of the region can benefit. Instability in Afghanistan can be an impediment towards development, economic development, political stability throughout the region. These are the facts before us, before all of us. And I hope all of us will have the clarity in mind to seize the opportunity and move on, rather than getting stuck in policies which has not helped for the countries.
So what is a bigger threat, the Daesh or the Taliban?
It's to categorize it to terrorist groups, which is a threat to the countries and to the institutions and to the state institutions. I don't think that it will help in understanding the threat. It was because of Taliban that the other groups like Al-Qaeda took root in Afghanistan. And at the same time, Daesh is a relatively new phenomena, but it has established some footprint in Afghanistan, unfortunately. The nature of terrorism or terror is not different. So the names are different. At the same time, our call on Taliban to give up terror in links with terrorist networks in internal negotiations has always been there.
So are these branches in Afghanistan or are the roots in Afghanistan? For example, Daesh in Jalalabad. Are the roots in Pakistan or in Afghanistan, in your appreciation?
I would say that they have, the Daesh especially, they have roots beyond the region as well. At the same time, Taliban presence is more widespread than Daesh.
Okay, the Haqqani network, for example, they've been targeting Afghans, Indian interests, American interests in Afghanistan. Again, where is the problem in dealing with a terrorist organization like the Haqqani network? And now, by some accounts, 40% of Afghan territory is in Taliban control, sir.
I wouldn't dwell on percentage, but Taliban do have presence in Afghanistan are posing threats against the interests of Afghanistan, first and foremost, but also to the economic development and also engagement of free world in Afghanistan and helping Afghanistan rebuild the country. The issue in that was there in Taliban there before the presence of the international forces in our country. In today they say that they are fighting against Afghan people because of the presence of foreign troops, which is only an excuse. The international troops came to Afghanistan only when Al-Qaeda threatened the world, while it was threatening already the people of Afghanistan and the lives of our people. Our people have made big sacrifices, but Taliban's current excuse is that they are fighting against the Afghan people or Afghan government because of the presence of foreign troops. So that's the challenge. And at the same time, they should realize that by destroying your own country, taking lives of innocent people, and denying your people opportunities, in dark messages of taking Afghanistan back to the old centuries, they cannot gain anything. Yeah. They can make news from time to time, but they only deny themselves the right amongst the people to be accepted as they continue with the methods of terror.
Okay. Sir, recently Khwaja Asif, Pakistan's foreign minister, was quoted as saying that the terrorists who attacked Army Public School in Peshawar, they were in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan offered to exchange one of them in exchange of Kulbhushan Jadhav, the Indian businessman who was illegally abducted and taken to Pakistan. Can you shed some light on that?
I would say that when you see me about to smile, it doesn't mean that I agree with those comments. But I would say that recently there have been comments, too many comments, that if we start making comments about it, too many statements, if you start making comments about it, you might need another 1-hour interview to address it.
But Pakistan continues to insist that terrorists are based out of Afghanistan and attacking Pakistan. Do we have evidence that terrorists are based in Pakistan and are attacking Afghanistan?
I would say that as I mentioned earlier, the situation is very clear-cut. Where terrorists are based, where they are coming, and who is the victim. And distortion of the story will not help us. Again, we don't want any situation to lead to another situation which we get stuck in the accusation and counter-accusation. But at the same time, there are enough evidences available about what is the situation and what is not. But I reiterate once again, as an Afghan and also as an Afghan official, that supporting terrorist groups will not serve any country's interest or any nation's interest. Afghanistan has never supported any terrorist group, our state, and will never do so under any name, with any excuse. That is a well-known factor, and we will continue to stand by our position. We expect the same from the neighboring countries.
Okay. Recently, the US President Donald Trump also said he sees a bigger role for India in Afghanistan. So, what is a bigger role that India can play, in your opinion?
India has been playing an important role, a very important role in the past 16 years, and earlier than that, in support of stabilization of the country, economic development, and helping the country and the people rebuild itself. Billions of dollars of assistances in economic development, in services, in education, health, energy, infrastructure, altogether, help, capacity building. All of this is happening already. Yesterday's event, Afghanistan, India Trade and Investment Show, the passage to prosperity, it was another example, which hundreds of businessmen and women from Afghanistan and India participated, and are working together, making deals to work and to engage in economic activities. So this is one aspect of it.
So apart from the Salma Dam, the India-Afghanistan Friendship Dam, the Parliament building, are there any big infrastructure projects that you think the two countries should work together on in the coming years?
So you mentioned Salma Dam, and there is road projects, there is energy transmission projects which India has helped us. Only a few days ago, four days ago, I inaugurated a plant. That was the start of work for an energy project, which is renewable energy, solar energy, which is an example of public-private partnership, which an Indian company had partnered with Afghans on the base of BOT, build, operate and transfer, in Kandahar. That's a 10 megawatt solar energy project. So this is an example. It's not just the state-to-state, government-to-government cooperation, but at the same time, businesses have started partnering in Afghanistan in helping in that field.
Military cooperation. You met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Apart from 4 military helicopters, is Afghanistan also looking at other military hardware from India?
These things, in terms of the scope of cooperation, we have not put limits to that. Indian government stand has been, if you have requirements, you tell us, we will see in the realm of our possibilities to help you and support you. That's the basis of this. And recently we had the second round of strategic partnership talks in the foreign ministerial level between Afghanistan and India. So that's the support for that you mentioned for our Air Force, providing the helicopters are there. The spare parts will also be made available. There are training programs. There are other security cooperations which is underway, and yesterday also there was an agreement, an MOU signed on the police sector in terms of helping Afghan police sector. So the scope of cooperation is very broad.
Right. 116 projects in 31 provinces is what India and Afghanistan are moving forward to. Some of the major ones that you'd like to talk about, which you think can be a game changer?
Every one of it is based on the priorities of the people of Afghanistan. And it includes irrigation channels, and small infrastructure projects, education, health, services as a whole. So it is helping. So altogether, it is we are very appreciative of India's decision to continue with the high impact projects, which 116 are identified. Some of these projects are in the areas, for example, that for decades they had not seen a building called school or a clinic in remote areas of the country, and it has been studied, and after a thorough study, these 116 projects have been identified. One of the projects, for example, near Kabul, in Parwan province, that provides drinking water for a city of a few 100,000 people. So that's an example, but altogether it has an impact on the lives of hundreds of thousands of people.
But at the same time, terror is the biggest impediment in Afghanistan's growth. So what is the doctor's prescription to deal with this terror? If you're talking about doctor's prescription, while you take medicine for any disease, but you don't stop thinking good, you don't stop making the right efforts in order to help yourself and help the others. Is there surgery required, a surgical strike?
I will answer you as a politician. I'd say that there are too many methods in medicine, but at the same time, we hope that we will, with the common understanding of the threat, which is not the disease, which is not only against us but against everybody, we will get where we ought to be.
That's a politician answering for a doctor's prescription. But for the moment, Mr. Dr. Abdullah, many thanks for speaking to us here at India Today.
Thanks.